You have a great show. We do have a great show for you today. I'm in the studio right now with one of my favorite authors, Douglas Gardham, the author of The Drive-In, the actor and the musician, best-selling author, and a really, really cool guy. How are you, Douglas?
I'm doing great. I'm doing excellent, and the musician is pretty new. It just came out at the end of 2018. So I was going to say I don't expect you to have read it yet.
I am stoked though, because I can't wait to see how you made the jump off point from Ethan Jones in the actor to this new world. Like very cool. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, there was no intention to write a sequel to The Actor. I had no. In fact, the last time I think we talked about it here, I said it's not really in the cards. It's not what I want to do. I see The Actor as a complete book, and then I leave, and the characters keep talking to me.
I like that. That's amazing?
And I know that sounds nuts. I know it sounds crazy.
No, that's where you're really passionate about what you do and keeping those characters alive. What's happening in your life? Because you're a busy guy, and we're going to get into that in a second. What's new in your life before I get into?
Well, since I've last seen you, we've moved twice. I've completed a screenplay for The Actor. Believe it or not, we were close to a deal last year, and but part like the movie business kind of goes. It's tough to keep that kind of going. But I'm deep into a new book. Really? And writing that, so I'm pretty excited about that, and hopefully we're going to see some other things coming up in the next little while. But this was a surprise visit today. You know that. you yourself though
you are one of the hardest working authors, novelists I've ever met. Like, you go from store to store and you make yourself present. You get in front of the faces of these people, and they tell me that quick story. You were in Belleville yesterday at Chapters, and this guy from the military.
So this is kind of the end of the day there, and the most recent Globe and Mail article they talked about, I kind of brought the book event or the personal appearance thing into a kind of Iron Man event, if you like. And so I'm there, and this person comes up, and I start to talk to them about the different books, as I'm always excited to do. And he looks back at me and he says, I'd like to get all three of those books if you could sign them for me, because I'm going to take it to the most northern part that we are in Canada. I'm part of the Canadian Armed Forces. So I'm kind of going, The Actor, The Drive-In, and the musician are going to be in the library at our forces base.
Where?
In Ellesmere Island, up north of Canada, and I was blown away.
So
how cool is that?
I can just see in my mind that those books will be on those shelves like 17, 25, 30 years, and guys are going to go up there, another crew just bored, nothing to do possibly, and your books are going to be the talk. Did you read The Drive-In? What? That story? That is Devin so Towers. Cool. And for you, that must be just amazing, knowing that your books are just at the...
Well, it's one of those things that I'll always do events, and I'd like to try and do surprise events eventually, but I was going to say I'm still doing them literally since we were last yeast I've been in a bookstore almost every single weekend. So that's like
what's
3
your
years
record?
ago.
You were talking about some main
I'm going to be celebrating next weekend at Indigo in Milton, Ontario, my 300th book event. Personal appearance. So that's in North America. So that's going through Indigo Chapters as well as Barnes and Noble.
And that's partly because the book is so great, but also that's why your book is so great, because you like I said, you're getting in front of people, and you're very. I was saying to you before the show, you got such an aura about yourself that it makes people want to come to talk to you in the first place, and then once you start talking about your passion, your ideas, and your story, they buy the book. And
well, thank you. I know it's one of those things that I just had. I mean, originally when we were talking about this, it was one of those things I'd already decided I wasn't going to do these. I'm not that person. I don't stand there. And I was, believe it or not, downtown Toronto and Indigo, and I meet this manager, and he says, why would I'm trying to find how to get the books in the store, was what I was doing very early. And he says, why would we want your book in our store? Nobody knows who you are. And I started immediately backpedaling. I was saying, I have a trailer and I have a number of reviews online. And for whatever reason, subsequently, I've got to know him a little bit. And he says, there's something in your eye. And he says, he looks back at me and he says, have you ever thought of doing book signings? And I'm looking back, coming back again, going, and all these different excuses of why. And he stopped me right in the middle. And he goes, where else are you going to go? Talk about yourself, talk about your book, and maybe find some new readers. No one had ever put it in that simple terms to me. And literally, that was the first time I booked an event. Holy cow, Indigo Bay Bluer. How crazy is that?
300.
And 300 later, I'm still doing it. And I mean, I write, as you know, literary fiction. It's about us emotional beings. And I don't know how else you find out to write authentically about us without being around us. And you're certainly not around us in my writing room.
Captn Comedy Hour. I'm exploring you and the actor, and one of the things is movies and the Oscars, and the character Ethan Jones ends up there at one point, and I'm going to talk to you about that after the end, but I want to play some movie comedy for us right now. Stick around. We'll be right back with Douglas Gardham. I'm with Douglas Gardham, and we're talking to you about your success in first The Actor, followed by The Drive-In, and now your newest book, The Musician, and the journey and the passion. And I've been playing movie comedy. One of the things about your book, The Actor, what I loved about it is there's these two unique story arcs that you follow and you're trying to make sense of. And then when you get to the very end, there's one massive story arc that ties it all together, and you're going, wow. It's very charming. It ties in an event at the Oscars, which is coming up. And how did that even start? Where did it come into your brain?
Well, it really kind of started following the 1998 Titanic movie, believe it or not. It has nothing to do, as you know, with the Titanic. But during the movie, for whatever reason, this idea came to me of someone getting up from what they were doing and chasing a dream. And I had always been fascinated by the world of acting. And so we're going to celebrate that, obviously, in a couple of weeks. We're celebrating with all the awards right now. But I'd heard, I'll say recently, an NBC executive say, acting is basically a life of rejection. And you think about it, and that's really what I began to write about, is the ups and downs of an actor chasing that dream. Nothing really happened with things as they went, and a little while after that, I got interested in how people deal with tragedy and the trauma that comes from the tragedy in their lives. And I brought those two ideas together, and that's really how The Actor came to be about. And so when I talk about it a little bit, I really think of it as as you mentioned, the protagonist, Ethan Jones, and it's really his story of self-discovery and overcoming the trauma of a personal tragedy in his life, which he does in a somewhat unique way by chasing a dream. Only that dream is not what it seems. And when the Globe and Mail actually talked about it the first time, it really makes their endorsement calling it a David Lynch-like thriller very appropriate.
Yes.
And that's how I knew they'd actually read the book.
Yes.
Because it's very much, Lynch's work is very much what you're watching is not what you think you're watching. And the Actor is very much a book that what you're reading is not what you think you're reading. You do find out, but that's kind of how it comes together.
Part of the journey, and that's what made it so exciting for me in a lot of ways. You did last time I talked to you. You said there was some kind of, you mentioned earlier in the show to you, there's a screenplay written, and there was some kind of interest, and that's kind of your next, I would hope, your goal for this movie, this book, taking it to the next level. Is where is that standing now? So,
the screenplay is out there. It's kind of crazy. I mean, I thought publishing was kind of crazy, but I think this whole movie business is crazy. So I'm continuing to really focus on my next novel. That's really what I'm kind of set up and doing.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple of people actually looking at. It's in Hollywood. It's in Toronto. And I was very fortunate. I was down talking in Toronto to one of the studios, and they really liked it. But it's just got to get connected in the right spots.
We were talking about it earlier. A lot of hard work creates luck. Luck doesn't just luck doesn't fall into your lap. You got to get out there, and that's what you do. We were talking about the Oscars, and one of the things that occurred to me about this year's Oscars was it's very Afro-American. Heavy. They have like the African-American superhero. They have the Black Ku Klux Klan. They have the Green Book, which is a white guy taking a black man through the South in the 60s. And I was going, I missed my opportunity because years and years and years ago, I was working on part of the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and I had met the host of that night or that event, and he was this Scottish, black, gay, Jewish guy. The trifecta, and Scottish. Like, I was going, what a movie! All the suffering in one. Like, and then we started talking because I was really interested in maybe in turning this into a movie. And he told me he was a vegan, and I was going, okay, dude. I walked away from him. You know how many cows I saved last year? I was like,
You're done.
Would you be excited if you saw the actor on the? Oh, of course you would be on the big screen. How would that like?
Well, I'm a huge movie buff, as we've talked about, and I mean every year we have kind of we attend an Oscar party and we all have our lists and we vote and everything like that. Nice. So to have the actor become a movie, for that matter, the musician or even Stories Out of the Drive-In would be just like that would be a spectacular dream to see kind of come together as far as the books go. And I do have a feeling that we will see that eventually. Had fun picking out who I actually think would be Ethan Jones too. So
and do you have a favorite?
Well, the original book, and that's how long ago it was written. It was originally Kevin Bacon.
Wow. And
that
obviously he's older now.
That doesn't work anymore.
Because it takes place in a university.
So when I was in LA a few years ago pitching this for a movie, and it was right around the time that Eddie Redmayne was doing very, very well. And so he was another contender that we had talked about quite a bit. But recently, after seeing Mr. Robot, Rami Malek has been one of the other people we've talked about. But his world of trajectories is changing this year as well. And I think that was one of the cool things that I saw this year was Bohemian Rhapsody. A real surprise movie, I think, for very many. But for me, what was really kind of cool about it is having the musician come out last year. It really kind of gave me a sense of, it's kind of right. It got it right. And I was really pleased with that.
I'm going to play some more comedy right now and take a pause for the cause. But this next piece kind of makes me think, where are you going next? You know, you have the actor, you have the musician, the athlete. Here's the Titans, something or others. We'll be right back. Captain Dave, we're back. Dave's not home. Yes, I am. I'm with Douglas Gardham, and as best-selling author of the actor. He's written The Drive-In, and now The Musician, which is a sequel to The Actor. And I can't wait. We're talking off the air about your passion for the musician and how it was such a natural role in. Tell me about your history with that in the band and when you were.
Well, as I said, there was no real intention to write a sequel to The Actor, but it kind of came about, and then through the whole idea of music. And for me, it's particularly special in that it was actually through music that writing found me. As a teenager, believe it or not, I was really good at math. I loved to read, and I had difficulty putting sentences together. And so what ended up happening, eventually I went on to become an engineer, but in high school I started a band, and we started to write music. I found I could write music itself. And after a little while of writing that original music, we needed something to sing to. And one of the guys said, well, you read a lot of books. Why don't you put your hand to writing lyrics? And so lo and behold, that's what I started to do. And strangely enough, I could put them together. I could match you have to match the melody and the rhythm of the music. And often lyrics don't even have to make sense. But there wasn't the structure that's really found in sentences. So that's where today I really call it my gateway or my portal into writing for their poetry. And then when I graduated as an engineer, I started to really get serious about how to tell stories and figure that out. So that's kind of how the whole world of the musician kind of fits into that. So, and I sometimes will say that I really believe the musician is music in words, if you like.
And the other concept for me was the whole drive-in part of this. So this is important to me because I don't know. I know you really wrap your mind around the actor and the musician, and in the middle there you kind of wrote this short. I guess it was a bunch of short stories that you've already gathered. I'm just wondering. First of all, tell me the blueprint of the storyline of the drive-in, which is really cool.
The idea of it is you ride along with a person driving to work one day who has some issues.
Love it.
Hence the twist. And that's really what it is, a collection of short stories with a twist. And what you get to do is, while that person's driving to work, what they pass by, we, the reader, get to go inside. And those are the short stories. You know how you pass the same places over and over again on your way to work, and some of those places you might wonder about? Those are the short stories. They've been written over the last 25 years. They weren't written with the intention of the book. They're multi-genre, so there's like a love story, there's a horror story, suspense.
Brilliant.
And along the way, you get to find out why this particular drive-in is unlike any other.
But there was a movie too. I would love to see this ripped into a movie somehow. Oh my God!
Well, it was a very accidental book, because I had been writing short stories. That's what I really started with when I graduated, to really begin to try and learn some part of this writing craft. And what I wanted to do was to take a couple short stories to help me promote the actor. And my publisher said, you should really do a collection. And I wasn't too excited about that. It didn't feel that it was fitting for the stories just to be dumped in a book, nor to the reader. So what I came back to was this idea years ago, driving to work. You pass these places, they almost become part of your life, and yet you can never know what goes on inside.
In the county, it happens consistently in the county.
No
We drive, and you're always just looking at these really interesting buildings and homes and interesting things hanging from them, and what happens behind those walls, and that's you captured it.
You can never know, and I just thought it was kind of like a neat thing. I know I can't solve that dilemma, but
I love this one.
You're not the first person to tell me that one.
It's a very cool story. I love it. Now, I want to, before we run some more comment, I want to explore one more idea. Now, you're obviously you shared a little bit of your youth, and you got into engineering, and now you got this little side thing where you're itching to write, and you're writing some more, and you make the break from 9 to 5 to independent writer. When and how did that happen?
So one of the things that I found out that was kind of interesting is I began to, I was bitten by writing. I don't know how else to really describe it. I have to write. So I've probably written now every day for almost 30 years almost. And what happened was, when the actor finally got completed and it was released, I didn't know what I was going to do, because I couldn't really leave my job, I didn't think, for what I was doing. And I knew that I couldn't keep the double life up. I was writing kind of at night and early in the morning, and I was working all day long. And so a number of things kind of happened. It was actually, I was work, and we were talking about a reorganization in the company, and I was given this opportunity, and I said, well, what happens if I don't want to do that? Which was kind of a shock, because my whole career had been built on the next move, and this is what you're good at, you should go there. And I'd always kind of gone in that direction. So we're in a meeting, and I said, well, the computer over there, start it up, go into Amazon and type in the actor. And so they did, and there's a book here with an author with your name on it. And I'll never forget that. And I said, well, that's me. And that's what I want to do. And so I was very fortunate, but it was just one of those things where divine intervention is going on. It was just, it's time. This is what you're supposed to do. I didn't have to.
You never looked back?
Well, as we were saying earlier on today, I often quote the late Tom Petty with this, about saying is that I don't want to do anything else. Nice. And I'm at that point. Yeah. And it's like, it's not that we talked about, it's not that it's not it's not like you have to work hard at it and continue to do it. But I can't imagine doing anything else anymore.
Two things. You had you're explaining strongly about how much you love the musician.
Yes.
And the new trilogy to this whole thing. We're going to talk about that when we come back. I'm with Douglas Gardham, and we're talking about the actor, the musician, and the drive-in. Don't go anywhere. Captain Dave Comedy Hour. We're back in the studio here in Prince Edward County, and I'm with Douglas Gardham. Okay, don't shut that off. I'm really having trouble with the mics today. Who's setting these up? Were you playing with them, Douglas? No? Yeah, he's got his hands up. No? I don't know. I'm not buying it. We're talking about your books. You're an author. If you just joined us, Douglas Gardham is a best-selling author of the Actor. He's just finished The Musician, which is a sequel to The Actor, and you've also wrote The Drive-In, which I loved. We talked about this, obviously, the passion for The Musician. Let's go there first before you tell me about the trilogy you have in mind. What do you think of The Musician? Like, what tell me the storyline, if you can, without giving anything away.
Well, I'd have to talk about this a lot, but The Musician to me is really a story of music. It continues Ethan Jones' story of not only searching for who he is, but what he is, but now his family struggling to stay together because of it. interesting, many people, many readers are already calling it a story of mental health. The tagline for the book is "The musician gives voice to the song inside all of us." What I was really trying to do with the book is trying to bring into a story, music connects us to me emotionally, all of us, and it reaches deep almost into our souls. And I think that I was trying to capture not only the joy and happiness in the story of our emotions, but also the fear and the terror, the sadness, and bringing that all really across that almost spectrum of feelings that we have in the musician, along with kind of a soundtrack to that. But as well, I really wanted to bring about the spontaneity of performing and creating music for the two of them. Most of us see the performance that goes on because we go and see our favorite bands and our singers. And the spontaneity of, there's nothing like the spontaneity of seeing live music. But many haven't necessarily seen how things get created, and that spontaneity comes in the same kind of frame. We're talking about movies. There's some great movies that have been able to capture that, like in the Walk the Line, the Johnny Cash story. What would you in the one scene where he said, the producer says, "What would you say to the Lord if you were dying in a ditch? You can't tell me that song you just played for me is what you would say." And then he plays the story of Walk the Line. Ray, Hit the Road Jack, the scene where he's breaking up with his girl is great. Even Love and Mercy has a great, being able to see creativity, and more recently, the Bohemian Rhapsody. So for me, the musician was trying to capture that in a story that would certainly capture my heart and bring forward what I really believe music has meant to me over my lifetime.
Tell me about where does that jump off into? Now you've got that in the can, in the print, in the publisher's hand, and now they're distributing it, and you're already thinking about the trilogy.
So, where are you going with this? Believe it or not, David, I'm not really revealing too much here. The Globe and Mail story, which I was enormously fortunate to get, they put me on the front page of Globe Arts. But we talked about it, both the musician at that time and the third book, which I've entitled The Author. So it's written. I usually say that's about 25% of what it takes, the rewrite's beginning. But I met early in December with an agent, and we started talking about whether that was the direction to go. So I have another, I'll say I'm about 40,000, 50,000 words into the book. And I think it's more pertinent to the time and what I really want to be saying. There's a convergence today. We probably call it a divergence. But we have technologies all. We talked a little bit in the drive-in about driverless cars. We have the internet. We have sensors. We have AI. We have all these things from social media and global change. And how are they coming together? And I have a story there that I think that I would like to talk a little bit more about. So that's really what I think is going to come out.
I love it. I love how you're a wordsmith to begin with. Like just the fact that you've been doing it for 30 years, and the fact that you have to join one word to another. I liken it possibly to my skill working at Second City in comedy, and you get on stage and you ask for a suggestion of a room and an object, and you do a 4.5 minute comedy bit without a script, and you just write it in front of the audience's eyes, and they go, "You wrote that," and it just comes out of your mind. Same with you, it comes out of your mind and through your hands and onto your fingers and onto the screen. I love that. I think I love that. It's very passionate. It's very cool.
It is a really, I think what's so neat about it is we get to do it.
I forgot. I played Kevin Nealon earlier. I forgot to give him a promo. He's coming to Prince Edward County. I just want to jump in there. April 27th, if you're not doing anything and you want to see Kevin Nealon, he's the longest running Saturday Night Live cast member. He was on Weeds for like 6-7 seasons. He's all over it, and now he's here in our beautiful little county at the Regent on April 27th. Get your tickets to go see this guy. You'll have a great time. It's a great night out. I love comedy. So should you. Sorry, Douglas. I had to give Kevin a...
Get a ticket for that.
I definitely are. I'll be in line for that one for sure. Where do I want to go next with you? In terms of you yourself, and how hard a working guy you are. Let me spin this comedy And then maybe can I get you to read
Sure.
something from the book?
Yeah, sure.
All right, I'm going to spin, and we're going to set this up. If I can get you to go over by the fireplace and sit in that big cozy chair over there, and then we'll...
I'll try and stay awake.
No, you have to read for us. I'm the one, and my listeners, we're going to send you to bed with a bedtime story. Don't go anywhere.
The musician. Ethan, she said. She stopped. Her eyes had become wet glass. A tear rolled down her cheek. I'm sorry. I hadn't expected to feel this way. This is not easy for me. If it was hard for her, Ethan thought it was nearly unbearable for him. I was your nurse, Ethan, she said, brushing away a tear on her cheek. At the Royal, I had to leave. Ethan nodded. He loved listening to her voice. I was giving you the best care a nurse could give, she said. We had such wonderful times. You were the perfect patient. But she didn't finish as tears ran down both her cheeks. Her hands clenched into fists on each side of her cup of tea. I didn't mean to, she said. Her hands shook. Ethan reached forward and put his hands on hers. He knew her skin, the warmth her fingers could give. I know your story, Ethan, the murder, your roommate. I'm so sorry. She stopped again. Ethan was swimming in feelings. It was all he could do to keep his head above the surface of whatever seemed intent on pulling him under. Are you all right? Krista asked, her hands turning to take his. The touch of her fingers was electric, giving him strength to fight whatever was pulling him away. Her brown eyes stared intensely into his. Yes, but something's stirring, he said. We should do this another time, Krista said with a weak smile. Give us some time to... Are you nuts? He replied, squeezing her hand. I'd rather die than stop now. This is a chance to figure myself out. Krista's hands squeezed back. She was real.
The musician Douglas Gardham, an excerpt. That was very cool. I can make better reference points than probably some of our listeners that didn't read the actor yet. That's important. Do you need to read the actor before you read the musician?
So I get asked this all the time. I wrote The Musician intentionally to be a separate book, but as it turns out, I think it's actually the reader that decides that, and most of the time people want to start with the first book. But for those to know...
Because I understand what was going on, kind of, sort of, yes, from the first book. Like the puzzle comes together. That's very intriguing. I am almost out of time. Is there anything, like your website, to share my audience?
I was going to say, if you're in Belleville, there's some signed copies at Chapters Belleville this weekend that came through of all the different books. Nice. So the actor, the drive-in, and the musician. My website is www.douglasgardham.com. I was going to say you can find me on Twitter at the same Douglas Gardham, Facebook. Both of them are very active. I'm really excited next week to be in Indigo, Milton, Saturday and Sunday. I'll be celebrating 300 events, as we said earlier in the thing. So that's going to be in the program tonight. So that'll be a fun thing. I follow that going over to Brampton and then out to Ajax. I'm actually booked literally until June right now. So if you go to my website, I have an events page where it shows, in fact, Captain Dave's program tonight was listed on that event page. So you can find out where I am. It's constantly changing, and I look forward to meeting you. And one day, hopefully, you'll be reading one of my books.
Thank you very much, Douglas Gardham, for coming on our show today.
Thank you, Dave.
Check out his books. I would see, that's one thing about me that is sincere. If I'm endorsing something, I put my reputation and name behind it. Tom is my name. No, Captain Dave is my name, and I endorse these books. I haven't read the third one, so I can't really tell you that. But he tells me it's good. So that's. Do any hellos, goodbyes out there, special all the listeners and readers and people that you touch that knew about us? Because
I'd like to say hi to three people. My dear wife that I couldn't do this without. She's just back actually from Florida, a few days down there visiting the warmth. My son Zach, who constantly encourages and inspires me, and my daughter who's out west, Samantha, who always gives me lots of thoughts of things that can be happening tomorrow.
And with that, I am Captain Dave. Patience, passion, and persistence will get you anything you want in life. Dare to dream, dare to believe, and it'll all happen. I love you, Susie. I love you, Ali. I love you, Zach. And everybody out there for listening. Come on back again next week, and we'll do this all over again. I don't even have any more comedy lineup, so quick, tell us a joke. No, you don't have to tell us a joke. I'll let you go. I hope you had a good time. We're out of here, folks. Bye-bye.
Thanks again.